Hi everyone, and thank you for tuning in to this introductory video on cycling strategy. My name is Amanda Leibovitz, and I am one of the cycling coaches for Team SOCOM. In addition to supporting our SOCOM cyclists as they train and compete in the Warrior Games, I have almost 10 years of experience working with athletes of all ages, abilities, experience levels, and competitive goals. Today, we'll be talking about some key considerations for your cycling training and racing, including important vocabulary, approaches to structuring your training, and the importance of nutrition, hydration, and recovery. Let's get started by defining some key terms that will really help you get the most out of your training and also allow you to maximize your performance during competition.
Rate of perceived exertion is the single most important tool at a cyclist's disposal. It is your personal evaluation of how hard you feel your body is working based on the physical sensations you experience during activity, like trouble breathing, burning muscles, or your heart pounding in your chest. RPE is often rated on a scale from 1 to 10, or is described in terms like easy, moderate, and hard. As you become more experienced in cycling, you'll learn various training zones that will provide guidance as to how hard you want to be working during a workout or race. But I usually recommend that newer cyclists simply think about having 3 gears: easy, moderate, and hard. This will give you a great foundation to really benefit from structured training, even if you don't have all the fancy bells and whistles like a cadence monitor or power meter. Once you have 3 distinct levels of effort, then it can become easier to add in more training zones to take your workouts to the next level. Here we are introduced to 3 other terms that you'll see quite often in the world of cycling. The first is cadence, which refers to the rate at which you are pedaling your bike. A slower cadence will be more taxing on your muscular system and typically leads to fatigue faster than a higher cadence. So it might be beneficial to work in some high or fast cadence drills into your cycling routine to help your body make that adjustment. Heart rate, also known as our pulse, refers to the number of times our heart beats per minute. Our heart rate will increase the harder we are working because our bodies need our hearts to pump as much oxygen-rich blood to our muscles as it can to support our training or racing. Lastly, we get to functional threshold power, which is the highest possible power output we can sustain for an hour. Power on the bike is measured in watts using specialized sensors that attach directly to our bike's pedal, crank arm, or hub, or we can measure it with certain types of indoor trainers that can measure power through the drivetrain. Unlike heart rate, which tends to drift the longer we exercise, our power output will change immediately as our effort changes, similar to what we see with our pace or speed. Ultimately, we do not want to rely on any one data point when we're training and racing, but as I mentioned before on the last slide, RPE is king.
So now that we are familiar with some key terms that will help us get the most out of our training and racing, let's talk about some other factors that are going to influence your performance, like hydration, nutrition, and recovery. I'm sure we are all aware of the incredible health benefits of water and staying hydrated, but that doesn't always mean that we hit our hydration goals for the day. And this becomes even more important when we are training and racing in endurance sports, which often require us to train very frequently throughout the week and also to maintain a higher volume of training, meaning we're either riding our bike for a lot of miles or we're sitting in the saddle and pedaling for a lot of minutes. A great rule of thumb for hydration is to take your body weight in pounds, divide that number by 2, and then to drink that amount in ounces per day. So, for example, if I weigh 150 pounds, I will divide my weight by 2, which gets me 75. So my daily hydration goal would be to drink 75 ounces of water a day. Keep in mind that if you are completing a really hard or high intensity workout, or you're still training in a place where the weather's a bit warmer and you're sweating a lot, you'll want to cushion that with a little bit extra as you go throughout your day. So this might include the hydration that you take in during your workout, or you might want to bump that number up by a few ounces just to make sure that you are staying properly hydrated. Next, we get to nutrition, and I am going to challenge you to rethink your relationship with food if you are at all interested in pursuing cycling as a lifestyle activity or as a competitive sport. And when I say rethink your relationship with food, I mean to stop using food as a reward for physical activity and instead think of your food as fuel that is going to allow your body to perform the way you want it to. This means that in addition to taking in the appropriate amount of calories during an actual training ride or during a long distance race, we really want to make sure that we are eating healthfully throughout our day-to-day lives, making sure that we're getting enough protein, carbohydrates, and fats to keep our body properly fueled and functioning at its best. Fueling during training and racing does not have to be complicated. If you're completing any individual session or event that is going to last less than an hour, you really don't need to take in any extra calories, provided you've been eating well in your day-to-day life. If you'll be completing a training session or event that lasts longer than an hour, you probably want to consider bringing some calories along for the ride. This might be a gel or a gummy, it could be a granola bar, it could be your favorite cookie, but the main point is that you are providing your body with some source of carbohydrate to continue fueling your activity for as long as that activity lasts. Now let's talk about recovery, which is actually one of the most overlooked and underutilized aspects of performance. In fact, it is really hard to get to a state of true overtraining, so oftentimes that fatigue we're experiencing is a lack of recovery. In addition to staying hydrated and making sure that you're eating well, sleep is the #1 factor that will influence your performance on any given day. Even though most of us are probably not getting the recommended 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night, the quality of sleep is often more important than the quantity of sleep. So make sure that you have a great sleep hygiene routine in place that will allow you to get the most out of the time that you are spending in bed. Additionally, there are a few other ways that you can promote recovery between tough training sessions or after one of your priority events. And these include things like foam rolling. You might want to bring a stick on the road with you, especially if you're traveling. And if you have access to it, you can use fun toys like recovery boots, percussive guns, or cupping. But my go-to recovery strategy is actually just laying on the floor and throwing my legs up a wall for 10 or 15 minutes to help that blood flow through my lymphatic system, clean out all of the junk that's the byproduct of that hard work that I'm doing, and generally just leave me feeling a little bit more refreshed. Ultimately, the recovery strategies that leave you feeling better than you did before you started are the ones that are going to work best for you. Every body is different, so I encourage you to try different things with intention and see what effect it has. So now I'm going to turn things over to our other cycling coach, Don Jackson, who's going to be talking in a little bit more detail about strategies to structure or program your cycling training to meet your goals.
Excellent ideas for our riders on recovery, nutrition, and fitness, Coach Amanda. Thanks for those great tips. Hey team, Coach Don, one of your cycling team coaches. So you've made it this far and now you're thinking about dipping your toes into racing or other cycling events. But how do I get from the garage to the start line? Let's take a look at a few key training tips that will get you rolling down the driveway. Let's look at the 6 key pillars of performance. First, we have fitness. Second, we have skills. Third, we have experience. Fourth, we have focus. 5, we have commitment. And 6 is support. So let's take a look at the first one, fitness. This is something where you have to take a good look at yourself in the mirror and to make a determination about where your current fitness level is. Am I at a point where I'm just starting out? Have I established a good base of fitness? Or am I at a point where I'm in a maintenance program with a lot of my physical activities and my physical fitness overall? Next, let's look at skills. what skills, cycling, bike handling skills, what bike handling skills do I currently possess? What do I need to reinforce? And what do I need to attain? So if I am not comfortable riding in a pack, for example, I know that that's going to limit the amount of or the number of events that I can compete in until I develop those skills, those bike handling skills, in order to be confident and competent in a group. If you're at an entry level position or an entry level cyclist, you're gonna wanna watch follow-on videos or go to YouTube and be able to look at specific videos that that you know that you need to reinforce. Experience. Am I new to the cycling world? Have I been have I been at several games? Have I competed in several competitions? Do I do several group rides? That is going to make a determination about where you start when you develop your training program. Focus. And I'm not talking about the remote or the lens on your camera. This is about your ability to be able to stay on task and be able to complete that task to standard. Do I have the internal focus to be able to do those things that are required in order to make me successful? Commitment. We all have busy lives. We all have families. We all have events. We have children that we're running to school. We have children that we're running to events. We have to go pick up the dog at the vet. We have to go to the grocery store. You know, we all have competing events. So this is the opportunity for you to be able to take a real look at the level of commitment and the time that you have available. It might be 3 hours a week. It might be 10 hours a week. But what we want to focus on here is that we want to make a determination about the time that I can reasonably allow for me to train and develop the skills that I need in order to be a competitive cyclist. Now, support, our final point. I see this all weekend, every weekend, and I'm often amazed at how individuals are able to get away for 3, 4, 5 hours at a time on any given weekend and be able to train and be able to develop their skills. And a lot of that comes back to support. You know, this is the focal point. I need to look at the support that I have in place and the areas that I might be lacking support. If it's the family member or family time, if it's additional resources that I need from maybe a community partner or somebody else in the cycling world. And this is where I need to analyze the amount of support that I need, the amount of support that I have, and then make a bridge between what the differences are in that particular area. So now let's cover the 5 golden rules of training: specificity, overload, recovery, variety, and progression. Specificity is the adaptation to a specific stressor. So as we continue to stress our body, by cycling, our body continually adapts. And through that, what we do is we have different overloads or different adaptations that we continue to encounter. So we get stronger. Overload. The stronger we get, the more load we place, the more stimuli that we induce to that muscle group, the adaptation takes place. So what we want to do is we want to continue to stress or overload that particular muscle group to make it stronger. Recovery. Often overlooked, often ignored, but yet critical in stage. As our bodies become stronger, our body has a propensity to adapt to specific programs. So what we want to do is we want to let our body have an opportunity to adjust or to rebuild itself. This is particularly critical if we're looking at like hard stages of our training. We need to make sure that we introduce specific recovery periods for our body to get better, ultimately getting stronger. Variety. You know, our bodies thrive on new challenges. Doing the same thing over and over and over again becomes kind of mundane. So we want to make sure that we're introducing variety into our training schedule so that way it keeps us stimulated and keeps us positive in our training goals and in our progress. Progression. You know, we all like to see progression. I mean, that's kind of a milestone or a marker that we look for to make sure that our training is effective. If we progress too soon, your body will become fatigued and won't be able to adapt. Too slow and not enough stress on the body, you're not going to notice any significant gains or what you're going to want to, or the gains that you want to see. So we want to make sure that when we're doing this, that we're progressing at a slow, rapid pace. There are going to be certain instances where we plateau, knowing that the plateaus are going to be normal, but yet we still want to ensure that we're seeing gains of progress while we're training for a specific event or activity as it relates to cycling. So now that we've covered the 5 golden rules of cycling, you know, the first thing I like to do with people is I just like to get them out riding, so creating some volume. And from there, what I like to do is increase the endurance during those individual sessions. From there, I'll start to build some strength by going to lower cadence, so that may be in the 60 to 70 revolutions per minute range. And then I'd like to increase the functional strength by introducing some power. So increasing the load that you're placing on the body by either going up some hills or some gradual increases in the tension that you're receiving in the drivetrain itself. Now it's time for us to put everything together, guys. So let's put together a very basic training program. The only thing you need is a sheet of paper and some color crayons. From here, what I've done is I've developed a shell, our basic calendar, on what my training is going to look like through the week. Remember, I want to be specific. I want to include overload. I want to include recovery. I want to make it include some variety, and I want to make sure that it's progressive. So again, that kind of goes back to our 5 golden rules of cycle training development. Okay. So what you see here is you see that I was able to begin the endurance phase by incorporating for the first 3 weeks 3 rides per week of varying intensity and duration. So for this particular example, we start out, I have one 30-minute session 3 times a week, and I'm going to be going at a moderate pace or an RPE of 4 or 5. Now remember, RPE is rate of perceived exertion, and if you don't remember what that was, Amanda talked about that earlier in her video. So I have 3 days, the first 3 weeks of my training program. So I start off with 30 minutes, I increase to 40 minutes, keeping the same rate of perceived exertion or a moderate pace for myself, and I increase that up to 50 minutes my 3rd week. Okay, so now I'm starting to what we call, remember, overload. So now to summarize, okay, as you can see, it doesn't take a PhD to develop a training program. No slide on you, Amanda. And you can do it with something as simple as 2 sheets of paper and a set of color crayons, Doc. So during this particular session, we talked about the 5 golden rules of cycling: specificity, overload, recovery, variety, and progression. We talked about the importance of the 6 pillars of performance: fitness, skills, experience, focus, commitment, and support, and everything that you need in order to get you from the garage out to the start line of your chosen event.